Hello everyone and welcome back to Bigfoot Lake. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. It's nice to have you with us and hopefully you enjoy the encounters that we share tonight. Tonight we have two amazing Bigfoot encounters. One from the state of West Virginia and the second one from the state of Wyoming. Before we dive into our first encounter of the evening, I would like to mention that if you have an encounter that you would like to share with us so that we can all share that experience here around the fire at Bigfoot Lake, take a moment please and reach out. Our email is bigfootprepper@gmail.com. Just take time to spell out your encounter in an email and send it, and we can narrate it and all enjoy your experience. So we would appreciate you sharing that. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into our first encounter of the evening. This encounter dates back to 1978 and it is from the state of West Virginia. So with that being said, pull up a stump and get comfortable as we dive into our first encounter. At 53 years of age now, I can still recall an encounter while bow hunting near Burnsville, West Virginia. It was around 1978 on Oil Creek in Braxton County. My in-laws had a small farm they recently purchased for hunting and raising a few beef on. I was on the top of the ridge which had been cleared for hay, and I was walking along the dirt road on top to return back to camp, which was at the bottom of the ridge in the head of the hollow. I could not forget ever what I was about to see. Looking out way ahead, about 250 yards, on a point toward the small bushes, there was something very large and black laying in the bushes, with knees up and head down, just off about 40 yards from the edge of the wood line. Not sure of what I was seeing, I watched just a short spell, and it got up just like humans do as they get up from the ground. Now that it was up, I could see it was quite large, and then it started towards my direction, around to a small bowl near an apple tree and small woodshed. During deer season, this just does not happen, as I thought it to be some kind of a prank like people play. So I shout at this creature saying, "Hey, it's not good to be out here dressed up like that during hunting season," waving my bow. Now around the apple tree and shed, I determined this thing is at least 9 feet tall, walking in a stride of at least 5 foot, a step at a time. I yelled and waved, and it kept coming closer, as if I was not even there. And then I saw its face, an awful sight to see, as I can still remember to this day the length and the deep black leathery look of its face. I'll not ever forget it. Not like some people, I will not joke about this, for what I saw was real, and from the look of that face, I could not imagine it friendly by no means. But I was not going to take the time to find out either. I have never been back to that area to hunt. I have no idea how it goes undetected for the size it is, but it is real, and it looks very mean. I did not smell it, as the wind may have been going away from me. I have spent time taking pictures out on the hills around home and enjoying hunting, but now I always carry at least a handgun whenever I walk around, because I can't run like I used to, folks. And if you had seen what I encountered, you would take precaution and safety while you enjoy your time in the woods. Yes, it has been a long time since that day, but it will not leave my memory, even though it has been several years since I saw this creature. I believe after someone has seen such a thing in real life, it becomes, well, unforgettable. The creature was laying down in a similar way, such as a human would, with its knees up and its body flat to the ground. As for its body, I saw it all clearly as it made its way towards me. I had nothing between myself and the creature, except field grass mostly. I saw a long face like dark leather, with deep, bold cracks, with hair surrounding. Its hair was black, about 4 inches long, covering the body. But there was something I noticed around the top of the shoulder area. Its hair stuck out further than the rest. I have seen sketches and clips of what other people have seen, but the face of this creature was long and brutal looking. A very mean look in its face. I was never more afraid as I was then in my whole life. I knew instinctively to run. You just can't forget something like this. And I'm sure others feel the same way, that have had an encounter with this creature. Some will not even speak of it. So that's the conclusion of our first encounter from Braxton County, West Virginia, 1978. Lots of detail there in the description of the face and that leathery looking skin. What do you guys think of that one? Let me know in the comments, and if you would, hit that thumbs up button. It helps me out quite a bit with the channel, so I appreciate that very much. Okay, so let's continue and let's dive right straight into our second encounter of the evening. And this encounter is from the state of Wyoming. This was from near Laramie. When I was a sophomore in high school, my mom was dating a man named Scott. He had a four-wheeler, and we'd always go camping. We went to the Snowy Range mountain range near Laramie, Wyoming, and camped up there one weekend. Scott and his buddies were dredging for gold, and my buddy Keith and I, along with my brother, were riding the four-wheeler around, having a good time. I went out on a solo run, and that's when I experienced my sighting. Now, what you have to understand is the area we were in was pretty hard to get lost in. A huge, incredibly wide dirt road led directly from our camp to a massive meadow that led down off the mountain. In the other direction, about 100 yards or so down the dirt road, was the creek in which the guys were dredging. The main road leads you everywhere. As I rode past the creek, I saw another dirt road leading into the woods. I figured I'd explore a little, so I went in there. As I followed the road, I could see a few deer skipping around in there. The area was full of trees, but plenty of sunlight got through, and the area was actually very pleasant. Eventually the road narrowed and gradually disappeared, and the trees became closer and closer together. The area off in that direction was clearly rather unexplored, and I didn't feel like getting lost in there. As I turned the four-wheeler around, I was met with an incredible sight. A pretty small black bear had wandered out of the woods and walked right up to me. I braced myself for the worst, but instead the poor guy was shaking. He came right up to me and pressed his body up against the four-wheeler. He didn't look like he was very old. I was genuinely worried about him when all of a sudden, what I figured to be his mother charged out of the woods about 20 feet to my left. She ran right up to me and the young bear, looked up at me, and quickly nudged the little bear away from me. She looked at me again, and there was something about the look in her eyes. They wandered off, and I sat there wondering what the heck just happened. I swear I'm not making this up. Why didn't the mother bear attack me? Why was the mother bear not acting defensive around her cub? Then I heard it. It was the most terrifying scream I've ever heard. It started low, like a really deep lion's roar. As it grew in intensity, it sounded like a lion mixed with a low bass sound that oscillated a bit. The louder it got, it became higher pitched until it sounded like a woman screaming in absolute terror. It continued for about 6 seconds or so. It sounded like a woman was being slaughtered out in those woods. But yet it had an inhuman shriek to it as well. I wasted no time in getting out of that area. I rode down the main road and I passed the guys who were in the creek. I stopped and just looked at them. They were standing there looking around and asking me if I was messing around making that scream. I said I wasn't, and then we saw the 2 black bears crossing the creek a little ways down. You could tell they were in a hurry. The guys shrugged and went back to dredging. I rode down the main road and out into the clearing that leads out of the mountain. I saw a group of cars heading in. They disappeared into the woods to presumably go make camp somewhere. Brave souls. I rode for a bit and then turned around to head back to camp. As I approached the tree line, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I looked towards my right, towards the area of unexplored woods I had been in. There was an area of trees at the base of an incredibly steep peak, and the trees went up as far as the eye could see. I spotted a figure within those trees, and it was just standing there, looking at me. All I could really make out was that it was black or dark brown, standing on 2 feet. It turned and began striding up the summit with almost no effort at all. You could actually hear the crashing of trees and shrubbery as it made its way up the mountain. I rode back to camp in a hurry. As I rode back, I could hear another scream in the far distance, almost as if something were answering the first scream that I had heard. Since it was our last day on the mountain, the guys had packed in their gear and were leaving. I was admittedly relieved that we were getting out of there. Scott pulled me aside once I got back to the camp and asked me if I had heard those screams. I told him I had, and then I told him about those bears and what I saw going up the mountain. He was skeptical, but told me that we shouldn't tell my mom or my little brother since they'd most likely wig out. We took the 4-wheeler out to the meadow, and I showed Scott the area in which I saw the thing. There was no bad smell, which sometimes is reported with Bigfoot sightings. There were full-grown trees ripped right out of the ground. Branches, foliage, and leaf debris was everywhere. The smell of fresh pine and sap was pretty strong. We couldn't figure out what the heck could have done that, but it looked like a tornado went through there, ripping the place up. We left that day, and we never told anyone else about it. The other guys that went with us to dredge, they had heard the screams and acknowledged that something wasn't right. They wanted to leave it at that, though. I haven't been back there since, but I wouldn't mind getting a group together and heading up that way again to explore a bit. I'm not very experienced with the outdoors. The screams I heard could have been anything really, I guess. I do think it's pretty big, and I think it's also a big coincidence that it matches up with other experiences. But that doesn't really mean much. I could have seen a bear. It's possible. I could have seen a bear standing on its hind legs. Maybe. But it didn't look like a bear. It looked like a hairy man. And it was absolutely huge. I guess I'm both a believer and a skeptic, so I can't really say for sure what it was. It was still a pretty insane experience, though, one I'll never forget. And that's the conclusion of our second encounter. And I really would like your thoughts on this one. That mother bear and her cub coming up to the four-wheeler and being not very concerned about that human, but it seemed like they were more concerned about whatever was making those screams. You ever hear of an encounter like that? What are your thoughts on that? I'd love to hear it. If you could leave me a comment, I would appreciate it. I'd love to hear some different viewpoints on that. And also those trees and those saplings being ripped up, said it looked like a tornado went through there. Possibly trying to scare someone off. What do you guys think on that? Obviously there was a lot of strength and power there. Doesn't sound like something a bear would do. So leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this encounter. I found it absolutely fascinating. And if you don't mind, take a second and hit that thumbs up button. It really does help us out a lot. And that will conclude our encounters for tonight. I hope you enjoyed them both. Let me know which one you liked better, the first or the second. And with that being said, we're going to probably put out this fire, and would ask that you put your stumps back in their original positions. And until next time, have a good night.